Hello and welcome to Ward Talk, CTN's look at the political scene in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Bonnie Gabowitz. We'll be discussing issues and solutions with the city council members from our 5 wards on the 3rd Friday of each month. Joining us is Chip Smith from Ward 5. Welcome, Chip.
Thanks for having me again, Bonnie. It's a pleasure.
And as always, time flies, and all of a sudden, it's time to revisit what you're doing and what's happening with your ward. This is the month of February, a nice cold winter day, so let's warm up with some news.
I'm glad that I got to come in this week because one thing that is really, really important in not just our city, but in democracy is voting. We have the big presidential primary coming up on March 10th. We have some changes in some polling locations, and I'd like to share some information with your viewers who, granted, your viewers all know this stuff, but as sort of a public service announcement to kind of go through some of the things that the polling location changes, and for those of you not registered to vote, how to get registered, how to go in and vote absentee. And as you know, in Michigan, we have no reason absentee voting anymore.
Which is a major change and could be extremely convenient for people who have to work long hours and they just can't get to the polls in time.
Exactly. So our city clerk, Jackie Beaudry, is one of the best clerks in the country, has been recognized with a number of awards this year for innovation and access to democracy. Our clerk's office in City Hall is going to be open. It's open 8 to 5 every day for absentee voting, but Saturday, February 29th and Saturday, March 7th, it will also be open from 8 until 4 on those Saturdays.
So the 2 Saturdays.
Before the primary to take absentee ballot applications and accept your ballots. And if you're not registered to vote, you can go in and register to vote. The state law recently changed that if you are registering to vote within 14 days of the election, you need to bring proof of residency, and that's a utility bill, your driver's license, that kind of stuff, so that can be documented. You can do all of that at our city clerk's office on the 2nd floor of City Hall. If you're not registered to vote, people really need to get registered to vote because we really need to change who's in the Oval Office.
Okay, so in terms of who can vote in the state of Michigan for the primary, is it only registered voters who've registered for a particular party? Are independents able to vote?
Yes, everybody's able to vote. What happens is you go to your polling place or you go to the clerk's office to get an absentee ballot. You have to say that I want the Democratic ballot or, God forbid, I want the Republican ballot. And you will get...
Now, this is your opinion.
This is my opinion.
Okay.
But, this is also Ann Arbor, and I am a partisan. I am a Democrat. So, but ultimately, you will get the individual party ballot. There is one other issue on the ballot in March, and that is the renewal of the Washtenaw Community College 1 mil property tax that's tacked on. It's a renewal. You'll get that regardless of which party ballot you ask for.
And that's been an ongoing thing. It just now has to be renewed, so it's nothing new.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then, for those people who are going to the polls to vote on Tuesday, the 10th of March, the second Super Tuesday, if you will, we have 3 polling locations that are moving in the city, one of which is in the 5th ward. So for my friends in the 5th ward, the folks I represent, if you are in Precinct 3, you used to vote at the 2nd Baptist Church. The new polling location for the 3rd precinct in the 5th ward is Ann Arbor Open School. So you will vote there this year. And then if you were in Ward 1 and Precincts 1 or 12, your polling location is moving back to the Michigan Union. It had been there, and then when the Union closed for renovations, they moved it, and they are moving back to the Union for this election. And then if you're in Ward 1, Precinct 4, you also used to vote at the Second Baptist Church, you will now be voting at City Hall.
All right, and I would expect that these citizens will be getting some kind of mail communication as
everybody
to the change.
should have already gotten a voter registration, a new voter registration card with your new polling location on it. But you know, I like to beat this drum to make sure that people turn out for this election.
Right, and if there's any question about what precinct they're in, they can always go online or call.
Correct. You can
the office
you can
and
check either on the State of Michigan Secretary of State's website or at the a2gov.org, and then go to the city clerk's webpage. You can check there as well. You can also check to see if you're registered. Those are all really important things. One of the really interesting things that our clerk has done is on election day, when you're, oh, I've got 20 minutes, you know, can I get in there and vote? Is it going to be crowded? If you go to the clerk's webpage, we have an online tool that shows you what the wait is going to be at every precinct.
Wow.
So I think that will help make voting more accessible for the people choosing to vote in person.
Right, and again, the hours are the same as usual. That hasn't changed.
Nope,
from what you
that's
understand.
correct. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. On Tuesday, the 10th of March.
Okay, and those are the only issues to vote for.
That's all we have in March. When we get to city council primary elections, that will be in August, the first Tuesday in August.
And from now on, it's going to be in August.
Well, that's when the primary is, and then there will be, ultimately, the city council election will be in November. But as you know, for many of your viewers who might not know, most of our city council elections are determined in the primary in August. We only have one independent on council, a former Republican, but for the last 10 to 15 years, it has been the election really has been in the Democratic primary.
So this is a big month coming up for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. With a lot of elections this year, that's good. People get to participate. That's what we want. That's what democracy is about.
Okay, and in terms of some programs that keep coming up here, I know you wanted to talk about carbon neutrality and the expression 820. And I'm sure some people haven't heard of that expression. So
right. So
let's start at the beginning.
This program 820 was developed out of a council resolution to make Ann Arbor carbon neutral by 2030. So we have to do an awful lot to get there. And so to get there, the Office of Sustainability for the city is doing a big public outreach effort to figure out what are the top priorities, what should we be doing first, what should we be looking at. We've had a series of public engagement. We have a big town hall for this on the Saturday, the 22nd, from 12 to...
This is February?
February 22nd, from 12 to 5 at Pioneer High School. You can go to the a20.org webpage for more information about the town hall and the entire effort. And then we need you to register to come to this. It's going to be really what we're looking for is ideas. And we know what some of the big ideas are, but we also need to gauge the community acceptance of other ideas. So as Dr. Missy Stoltz, who's the director of the Office of Sustainability and Innovation for the city, she and her team develop our carbon neutrality plan and start putting dollars to it. We're going to have to make some difficult trade-offs, and this is about having the discussion for what those trade-offs are. So I think this town hall on February 22nd is going to be really informative. We're going to get a lot of feedback from it, and her team's going to be able to take a lot. If you can't make that, there is something that's a little bit more fun that evening, which is a dive-in movie at the Mac Indoor Pool. They're showing Moana, and you can go swimming during the movie, but we're also doing some climate program brainstorming beforehand to try. Really, we're trying to do a lot of outreach, particularly with the younger members of our community who are so often overlooked, because this is the issue that's going to define their lives.
Let me just clarify something. When you talk about Ann Arbor wanting to reach zero, the neutrality, are you talking about only the city-owned properties?
No,
Are you
we're
looking
talking
to
about us
engage
as
corporations
yeah,
and
we're looking to
businesses
engage
and homes?
everybody. You know, the city's carbon footprint is just a small portion of Ann Arbor's overall carbon footprint. The university's of course huge, but the biggest is ours, every individual. And so a lot of this is, what can we do in our homes to weatherproof, to cut down on energy usage? How can we commute less? How can we drive less? How can we improve mobility? How can we encourage other modes of transportation? Some of the things that we're going to be looking at is we are working with DTE right now to put a very large solar installation out at the former landfill at the Wheeler Center. It'll probably take 1.5 to 2 years to go through the engineering to get the approval to do that, but we're working with them to do that. It's about a 25 megawatt array. We are working to try and remove the cap on personal renewable energy generation that is a statewide policy. So we've been lobbying the state to open that up, to encourage personal investment in solar energy. I'm going to be bringing a resolution before the Environmental Commission this month that looks to prohibit new natural gas connections at new construction. This is something that's been done in Berkeley, Cambridge.
So you've been doing your homework.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is a fire drill. This is not a fire drill; it's a real fire.
Right. Well, when we come back from the break, I want to continue talking about this because I think we're at the tip of the iceberg of recognizing how important this is. Okay, so
Sure.
we'll continue talking about it.
Great.
Okay. We want to hear from you, so please email questions to ctn@a2gov.org or tweet us at #CTN in Arbor. We're going to take a break now, and we'll be coming back with Chip. Hi, this is Bonnie Gabowitz, and we're at Ward Talk talking with Chip Smith from Ward 5. And we were just talking about a very important project that's going to encompass so much and take a while, the carbon neutrality. My question to you is, I mean, I just see this so involved and broad-based. If you want to involve everybody, not just the city, to take a whole different attitude and a whole day, really a different way of behaving. It's not just an attitude, but a change of behavior. And I see some more recognition. I don't know how much Greta had to do with this, but I know when I'm throwing something away and I think, well, can I save this, or is this really recyclable? And I'm putting more thought into it, and I think that's a start with citizens and small businesses. But how do you plan to get all of this started and moving as a machine in terms of discussion and then decision making?
You know, so first of all, Missy Stoltz, who's the director of the Office of Sustainability and Innovations, which is kind of a mouthful, is wonderful. Really, really thoughtful, really good at public engagement, really good at getting people talking. You know, as we move this initiative forward, there are things that we can do on the city level, you know, as far as how we generate power, how we use our vehicles, how our buildings function. We can address all of that through budgetary means. You know, we can set aside the money to make City Hall an energy efficient building. We can buy green vehicles. We can, you know, create an internal carbon tax that looks to do offsets.
Right, and you can be the model for others to follow.
But, you know, you're absolutely right, is that the public has to understand the situation that we're in, and there are behaviors that have to change. And I think some of the things that we can do on a governmental level is try and remove some regulatory barriers to installing solar at your house. We can, you know, create assistance programs, and there are assistance programs through the county for weatherization. You know, the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases in our area are existing buildings and our transportation network. So as we think about how people move around our city and our region, we have to figure out how to do that more efficiently and how to get people out of the mindset of I can drive every place by myself for everything, because that's going to kill us.
And one of the things that doesn't help, although we appreciate it, is that the gas prices have been quite stable, and you know they're much lower than they were a few years ago. So that's not an incentive.
Right. You know, I think how we move people around our cities is going to be the biggest cultural challenge that we have. Is, you know, particularly in Michigan, people are so used to driving by themselves. We have a very incomplete transportation network in Southeast Michigan. You know, the city of Ann Arbor has a wonderful partner in the RIDE, you know, but the RIDE really stops at the borders of Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti and Pittsfield Township and Ypsilanti Township. You know, it's hard to extend it into Livingston County. You know, what we're trying to do is capture more people at park and rides. How do we do that more efficiently? How can we incentivize that? How can we charge a true price for parking and driving? You know, we have subsidized parking in downtown Ann Arbor to the tune of it's cheap. We've given it to employees. We think it's a right. And ultimately, if we start charging the true cost of that, then that can help disincentivize that behavior. And that's one of the things we want to do. But when we talk about mobility and how people get around, we also have to talk about where do people live. And Ann Arbor has, since the early 80s, has grown very, very slowly, and yet the jobs continue to grow. The university continues to grow dramatically. The number of businesses grows.
Well, plus we have so many more buildings that have been built and more people have moved in.
Well, you know, the really interesting thing about that is we talk a lot about the buildings that have been built downtown, and since about 2009, most of the buildings built downtown are essentially private dormitories for the university. So if you look at the number of beds that have been created in those new buildings, it doesn't even keep up with the university increase in enrollment. So we're not making a dent in this. We have 85,000 people that commute into the city every day to go to work, and we as a council, have not been particularly good at approving new housing construction, and certainly not very good at it in a way that encourages a density that will be more supportive of transit and active transportation. You know, it is a fight to do all of that. It's very expensive to build, and that's squeezing a lot of people out of the community because they can't afford to live here. They can't afford to buy in, you know,
And we're getting a shortage of workers
right.
who are needed for the small businesses, the restaurants. I know that's become a problem in Ann
It's a
Arbor.
huge problem, and you know, City Council in the last 7 months has had the opportunity to approve 2 new affordable housing developments. One was an affordable senior development in the 5th Ward. Another one was an affordable development in the 3rd Ward. City Council turned both of those down. You know, we are moving ahead with.
And what I'm curious to know where you stood on the voting for that.
I supported both of those projects. I thought that they were both good projects. I certainly think building affordable housing is difficult. It's hard to pull together the financing to do it. Developers take a huge risk. If you're building affordable housing and not getting some sort of government support, which neither of these programs were looking for, you're taking a big risk. And I think when the private sector is going to step up and build something that we've said that we want, allegedly, we should be encouraging that. You know, luckily the community was very upset about that decision, and it helped push us to take a look at some of our underutilized property, particularly downtown, to see what its potential is as affordable housing. So just in the last 2 months, City Council has approved moving ahead with 2 affordable projects downtown, one at the corner of 4th and 4th and Ashley, or I'm sorry, 4th and Catherine, the Carytown surface parking lot, trying to move ahead with that as an affordable housing development. And then on North.
So, excuse me, the parking lot would be cleared and then made into
a
new
building
building
would be built there. And then the U of M Dental Clinic is on a city-owned parcel on North Ashley. We are going to move ahead to try and develop affordable housing there, and then potentially keep the dental clinic on the 1st floor. But you know, those conversations are ongoing. You know, but that's if everything goes well. If the Ann Arbor Housing Commission is successful in winning what's called low-income tax credits to help finance this, you know, we're looking at 5 years before those units come online. And, you know, we're not talking 1,000 units, you know, we might be talking, you know, 200. And so we need to, you know, really open the floodgates to allow this, you know.
It feels like walking through sludge.
It's
just so complicated.
You know, Ann Arbor's a funny place. It is, while a lot of my colleagues on council talk about wanting to build affordable housing, they don't really, their votes aren't consistent with what they say. And so when you have people who are saying, well, you know, supply and demand doesn't apply to us, they're wrong. And that's a narrative that, you know, it's sort of a nativist narrative that's come up in a lot of corners. And we hear it in communities all over the place, is that, oh, it doesn't apply to us because we're a desirable place. You know, there are so many studies that show that if you increase the amount of housing available, the price goes down for people. You know, but when you're looking at the demand that we have, and even if you take half of the 85,000 people that commute in every day, if you talk about creating 40,000 units, you know, that is going to make it more affordable to live here. And I think that ultimately we are still caught in this fight, which is a generational fight, which is a lot of the older generation believes Ann Arbor is a small town.
And keep it the way it is.
Right. And you know, as in my role as being a city council person, having to represent people here now, but also having to plan for the future and be responsible in doing that, you know, we have to think about what tomorrow means. And to me, how do we build a place that can be a sustainable, carbon neutral place? And you can't do that by saying we're not building anymore. You know, we can't put up a wall around the city and say, well, if we don't go outside and we don't add any more jobs and we don't do anything, but we do these little carbon neutral projects, we'll be fine. That's not true. We have to participate in the broader context of the region, and
Chip,
I
I
just
hear
don't
your
get it.
frustration, and in the couple of minutes we have left, I understand you're nearing the end of your term, so tell me a little about
I am.
that.
I announced in October that I was not going to run for re-election, and there are a couple of reasons behind that, and one is, this job takes a lot of energy and focus and determination, and I have a day job. I have a family, and doing this for it'll be 5 years. That's
Well, you
long
put your
enough.
time in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also time for other people to step up. I think I'm also very frustrated with this current council in particular. I ran for office because I was frustrated with the previous council's inability to get things done. And we are right back to that, is whether it's a lack of professionalism, a lack of respect for staff, or just a fundamental unwillingness to understand how government works. We're not getting much done. We're really good at talking about things, but really bad at getting things done. And then the last reason I'm not running for re-election is, as I look at the makeup of City Council, the 5th Ward hasn't been represented by a woman since 2006. When I learned that Erica Briggs was intending to run for the seat, I think that that's great. I think our City Council makeup needs to be more reflective of our city. It is too heavily white. It's too heavily male.
You
want
want more diverse representation.
We don't need any more people that look like me making decisions. And I think she is such a great candidate. She's very professional. She's so smart. She listens well, and she knows how to work for people. She's been an advocate in the community.
Well, we'll be interested to follow her efforts in running. And I want to thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
And good luck with everything.
Well, thank you very much. Hopefully I can come back one more time.
Okay. Remember to join us for a new episode every 3rd Friday of the month. We want to hear from you, so please email us at ctn@a2gov.org. Attention, Ward Talk. You can also follow CTN and ask questions on Twitter at twitter.com/CTN in Arbor. We'll make sure to include your questions. For Ward Talk, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz. Until next month.